This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Bagley.
Someone asked me once, how do you feel about other radio shows that promote boating, conservation, fishing, wildlife? I said, I love it. I wish there were more shows like this everywhere. The more we talk about it, the more people we can get engaged, the better the message can get through. Today, we go inside outdoors with the host of one of those other shows to talk about how much we have in common. Maybe Leno and Letterman didn't get along, but Nolan and Baglin certainly do. Next on Kentucky Afield Radio.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return. But you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund, the natural tax shelter.
It's easy to use fishing cliches in commercials.
Catch memories.
Hook some fun.
Or
you'll love it. Hook, line, and sinker.
So, with the catchphrases out of the way, next time you go fishing, ask someone to go with you.
See if we take the bait.
Introduce them to what you love so much. After all,
we already know the terminology.
Now, they just need to know how. Fishing. Your Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife can help. Log on to fw.ky.gov. Welcome to Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin, and it's St. Patrick's Day week. What do you do for St. Patrick's Day? You wear green? Do you pinch people if they don't wear green? Do you drink green beer or green milk or green lemonade? Do you have a shamrock pinned to your lapel? Kiss me, I'm Irish. A fun day, St. Patrick's Day, all in all. One thing I don't like, though, is that people come up to speak to you and say Happy St. Patrick's Day with a phony Irish accent. It's not just people at work or school. It's even newscasters on TV. Maybe it is just for amusement, but for some, it's just annoying. Especially after the 80th time. And I love accents, but not when they're fake and cheesy. Yet some people believe that they have nailed it, that they embody the Irish, that they are from Dublin. And having an accent or portraying an accent on stage or in theater, it's a part of linguistics that is truly an art form. I can't do it. My Kentucky accent is hard enough to understand. So what does any of this have to do with anything, especially wildlife? Well, I'm glad you asked. Back in November of 2015, I get this email, and it says, Hi, Charlie, I hope all is well. I'm a first-time listener to your show, a fellow listening online. Goes on and says, I do wildlife shows on the radio myself, and it's a great way to raise awareness about the environment. Kind regards, Albert Nolan, Limerick City, Ireland. So we began emailing back and forth, and since then, we've become friends. And he hosts a show called About Limerick. And the more we talk, the more I said, Albert, you need to be a guest on Kentucky Afield Radio. And thanks to Skype, he joins us now from the studios of Limerick City Community Radio in southwestern Ireland. Albert, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Lovely to talk to you, Charlie. Thanks so much for having me on.
I think we could talk a little bit first, if you'd like, about the differences or maybe what we have alike between Kentucky and Ireland, and I have a feeling it may be talking about whiskey. Kentucky makes a lot of good bourbon, but a lot of people call it whiskey at the same time.
And I see over there you have the Bourbon Trail, where very much the whiskey, you can do a trail, a kind of a heritage trail. You can experience the whole the culture behind it. Over here, we don't really promote our whiskey as much as that, but we do have the Guinness Trail. Have you ever tried Guinness, Charlie?
Guinness beer.
Guinness beer, yes.
Of course, yes.
So when you come here, you go to Dublin, you do the Guinness tour, and I think that's really a part of the heritage as well, that anyone who comes over here from America wants to try our Guinness.
So Guinness beer is more popular than Irish whiskey.
I would say so, you know. And Guinness beer is more popular among the younger generation. It's actually, before it was considered an old man's drink, but it's actually become very trendy and very popular. So if you go into any of these nice young people's pubs, they're all in there sipping their Guinness. And just on a side note, years ago here, when you used to give blood, and after you give your pint of blood, they used to give you a pint of Guinness, because Guinness is packed full of iron. I was doing like another connection between us, which is I see George Clooney was born here in Tipperary, and we kicked his ancestors out and headed over to Kentucky. Is George Clooney famous in your part of the world?
Indeed he is. We could crown him king tomorrow. We like George Clooney. Now, when we talk about Ireland in Kentucky, chances are it's going to be, we're going to an Irish pub, we're going to have corned beef and cabbage, probably drink a Guinness. We also love Ireland because you gave us St. Patrick's Day. Do you celebrate St. Patrick's Day as just like we do?
Oh, we do, yeah. You know, for the younger generation, we have a parade here every year on March 17th, and the local kids will dress up, and you'll have music, and you'll have celebration. So it's very much a coming together of the community.
There's a college called Notre Dame in northern Indiana, and they have a football and sports teams there called the Fighting Irish. I'm going to trust that you're a fan of Notre Dame.
I heard of Notre Dame, very famous, and I was looking there as well. I was interested in, you know, what wildlife connections we have. And I know over there, and it's here at the moment, it's kind of a big topic in terms of wildlife. You have the white-tailed deer over there, am I correct?
We do. We have plenty of whitetail.
They can cause a little bit of damage when the numbers get too high. So we have deer over here as well called fallow deer, very similar to your white-tailed deer.
Fallow deer, yes, sure.
Yeah. There's kind of a conflict between, you have the general public who see the deer and they see the young and they think, God, isn't it lovely to see them, and it's a real wildlife show as well. But then you have a lot of forestry that goes in here, the farmers who planted this pension cross and the state forestry, and when the deer get into the forestry, they do an awful lot of damage. So there's calls at the moment for the deer to be culled. So you have the kind of the public perception that these are something that need to be conserved, and then you have kind of the farmers and the agriculturists saying that, look, we need to cull them. So there's a little bit of conflict. And I think you something similar in Kentucky, where the deer would be roaming onto land and causing damage.
Certainly. We have plenty of nuisance deer here, and you can get a nuisance permit to harvest those extra deer. And so, yeah, we have to be mindful of that. Agriculture basically puts bread and butter on the table for everybody here. We have plenty of deer, and we have a very liberal season on the female portion of the herd. We call them does, and we have an unlimited doe harvest, because if you have fewer does, then you have fewer deer giving birth to more deer. And so we have a $1 limit and unlimited doe harvest. We have that many. The estimation is for our state. Now, again, I don't know if you are aware how large a state we are compared to Ireland, but we have close to 1 million deer in the state.
I'd say the population of deer in Ireland would number maybe in 10,000 or something like that. It's not quite a big number, but it's a big number for a country. But what strikes me as interesting, the practicality you have over there, that when you shoot this deer, it's used as meat, venison, to stock the freezers. So over here, you can get a special license to cull them, but the meat is never used. And certainly when I was growing up, my grandfather would take us shooting, and anything we shot, we would use as food. So I think that's very interesting. You have that practical conservation that, yes, your deer have to be controlled, but it's also a source of food. So
you don't eat venison?
It's not that we don't eat it, and I do like it as a meat, but when these deers are shot, the meat isn't used, which I think is a crying shame.
It does seem wrong. I can understand shooting an animal because it's a nuisance or it's causing crop damage, but just to shoot it to let it lay, I don't know what you gain from that.
Yeah, I like wildlife, but I have to be practical about it as well, and deer numbers, they can't be allowed to get too increases, because a lot of deer here cross the road, and I'm sure if you've ever seen a car or after a deer hit it, it causes a lot of damage, so you do have to cull them, and I think why not? There's people there who would absolutely love to have venison in their freezer to feed their families.
Albert, the music is playing. We'll take a break and talk more about wildlife here and beyond. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back on Kentucky Afield Radio. My guest this week is Albert Nolan. He's the host of a radio show in Limerick, Ireland, fitting for this St. Patrick's Day week. Before the break, we were talking about the opportunity to put meat on your table via deer hunting. And Albert, one thing Kentucky hunters do is when their freezers are full, they'll go out and they'll harvest yet another deer. And they'll donate it to a food bank, missions to feed the homeless, the underprivileged. They make hamburger out of it. They put it in stews. I mean, it's delicious, and it's very much appreciated.
I think it's lower fat as well, so it's a very healthy meat. But see, I think over here we have the perception of deer as these cute, and there's some things that people don't like to eat, like maybe like kangaroo and stuff like that, which is just coming into the shelves in Ireland now. So that I think it takes a while for people to accept that deer are a wild animal, and like the pork you buy or the beef you buy, it's something that you can eat. But I was very curious as well, Charlie. You have pigs over there, but they're not that welcome, according to the little bit of research I did, that they can cause an awful lot of damage, because we do have pigs over here, but they're kept on a commercial farm, and they don't roam the countryside wild. And I never realised how much of a pest they can become.
They can really wreak havoc on the countryside. They root up the ground. I'm presuming they dig, they rut through, they will tear up a crop, they will tear up the forest floor, meaning the ground. And they multiply, I don't know if I should say like rabbits, but they multiply quickly. If you go out hunting these animals during the day, they're smart enough that they quickly become nocturnal. They'll be active at night when the hunters aren't out there. And so they're really hard to control. And so we had a problem with these, I believe, especially western part of our state. And we had to take some drastic measures, but at least now the habitat is protected from them so that other animals can live, rabbits and hawks, deer. I hope Ireland doesn't have the problem we did.
No, and I said pigs have been kept here for generations. Every household before would have had a pig in its backyard, and it was known as kind of the pension pig, so that if times got really hard, you could sell the pig or you could, get meat from it. But and just a quick question, Charlie: is the pig used for food when it's hunted, or like the deer, would the pig be cut up and used as meat?
Far as I know, yes. Can't imagine, though, why it wouldn't be delicious. We like to do something over here called barbecue, and we will slow cook over a fire this meat. And I like pork spare ribs. That's just one of the finest meats you can put on the plate.
You're a man after my own heart. Pork ribs are one of my favorite as well.
So hunting in Ireland, I did some research, and you have a lot of open land in Ireland. Is that land that's huntable?
A lot of the land in Ireland, Charlie, is in private hands, which is quite surprising. You have the farming landscape here, so you'd have small farms, maybe 70, 80 acres, and these would be private land. But generally, the relationship is good between the farmers and the hunters, and a lot of hunters would hunt in their local area. They know the farmer, and they fulfill an important role that it would keep kind of the local population of rabbits under control. They would keep magpies and hooded crows. So they do the role of vermin control for the farmer, and he does appreciate them. Once they respect the land and they're not in fields that have animals in it and they're shooting and they're leaving gates open. So I think that's a very good relationship that's there, and a very necessary relationship that benefits the farmer as well.
What animals are the most hunted there? Fallow deer, I'm guessing, one of them?
Yeah, deer would be one of them. Rabbits would be very hunted here. You'd have foxes that are hunted as well. And they're the main things there that people would hunt. And also birds as well. Wood pigeons. And you'd have the magpie, you'd have the hooded crow. So all members of the corvoid family would be hunted on a regular basis. And it's quite easy in Ireland to actually get a gun license. If you want to get one, you apply to your local Garda station, and you fill in this form, and the guard will call you in for a little interview and a chat. Fill in the form, they do a little bit of a background check, and you can get your license then. Is it that easy in America, Charlie?
Well, it's fairly easy. In Kentucky, I'm not going to speak for every state, but you can go to your local sporting goods store. You can buy a handgun if you're 21. If you want to buy a long rifle, say a rifle or a shotgun, you can do that at age 18. And you will fill out the form, and I'm told that they will make a call to our Federal Bureau of Investigations, our FBI. And within a matter of minutes, you can have your okay. You have passed that clearance. So you can basically walk in and walk out.
And the same over here, Charlie. Most of the licenses issued over here are for what we call shotguns, and they'd be for, farmers on land, for controlling, different creatures that would interfere with their crops, and for sport as well, that you'd have the clay pigeon shooting, you'd have the competitions, which are still hugely popular and will be regularly on during the summer. And although getting a handgun here has gone a lot harder, because there was the laws were passed recently, so it is nearly impossible now to get a handgun here in Ireland. But you can apply for when you're over 16 here, you can apply to have a shotgun license. If you're from 14 to 16, you get a training license. So that means someone who is going to take you on and show you how to do it properly. But it also means you have to store your gun properly. So you have to have everything in a locked up compartment, and of course the ammunition separated from your gun.
So you have a hunter education of sorts.
Well, I think so, and I think the hunter education is responsible owners who have been using guns all their life, and they take people on board, like, young teenagers who are interested in learning how to use these things safely. And you also have local gun clubs, which is a very good idea, and you can affiliate to that, and you get your insurance. They link in then to the wider organizations. You have a national organization then. So they will promote definitely responsible use of shotguns, and a lot of them will be farmers as well. So you have the whole thing, as you said earlier, access to land is such a key thing, because even for hikers who would be following walks through farmers' land, like, that's becoming a little bit trickier because you have the whole insurance issue. So the local gun clubs do good work, and they're good, responsible people as well.
Tell me about the insurance issue. This is a new one on me.
What it means is there's been a lot of cases where people have gone on to, let's say, a farmer's land, something has happened, and the farmer finds himself being sued. A lot of farmers started denying access to land because they were concerned that, look, if something happens on my land, I'm going to lose my farm. People now, when they're doing a walk through someone's land, have to have public liability insurance. So that means then, if something happens, the organisers of the walk, or organisers of the hunt, are responsible, not the farmer, which is only right.
In Kentucky, let me tell you how that works. A state law called the Recreational Land Use Statute It came about because we have so little public land, such as parks, national parks, state, national, federal forests. But we have so much private land that we have a law in place that encourages the private landowners, the farmers, if you will, to allow people to come onto their property to recreate. That might be taking a scout troop to camp, sled riding, could be hunting or fishing, photography, whatever the recreation might be. The landowner has to apply only by 2 rules. But if they follow these 2 rules, then they are, without blame, they are held harmless. They are not responsible for any accidents that take place, whatever they may be. One, you have to tell them if there's any inherently dangerous situations that they could happen upon. For example, say you're raising cattle and you have a mean bull in one lot, and it's fenced off, and say you might want to stay out of that one lot, or if you know where a sinkhole might be. And the second thing is, don't charge any money whatsoever. And they're telling me that if you even say, well, if you're going to go fishing, give me a couple of fish, or give me a couple of bucks, because that'll help me with the cleanup and just to keep the property maintained, then that makes null and void your agreement with them. Then that means you do become liable. So you can't charge any money, and you have to tell them up front if there's any inherently dangerous situations to be found on your property. But other than that, you can go out there, and if there is an accident, you are not liable. And this is a good law. It's been around since the 1960s. Albert, we need to hold it right there. We have a fishing report just ahead, then the break, and we'll be back with more of our St. Patrick's Day edition of Kentucky Afield Radio. Back, we are into our second half hour. If you would like to hear this show again, there are 3 ways to do it. First, just go to our Facebook page and put in Kentucky Afield Radio on Facebook, and up will pop our weekly link. You can also go to YouTube. Kentucky Afield Radio in the search box should bring up our entire list. Plus, we're a podcast. Just go to iTunes and look us up, Kentucky Afield Radio. It's that simple. Listen to the show again, send the link to someone, share it on Facebook. More with our St. Patrick's Day special. First up, our fishing report.
This is Rob Rold in the Northwestern Fishery District. Crappie were biting well at the Rough and Nolan, especially in the backs of the creeks, fishing the standing timber. They were relatively shallow this time of year, 4 to 5 feet deep. Also at Rough and Nolan, bass have just started really getting kind of active, starting to get a little shallower. Walleye, same thing. Water temperature is around 50 degrees, and that's perfect for walleye. Malone, bass there too. As it's warmed up, they're starting to move shallow, especially the larger ones. Again, the bait of choice seems to be crawdad-colored jigs, again, tip of pork or plastics. And also later this month, our Fence Lakes will get our first stocking of catfish for the year. That's an update from the Northwestern District. Please remember to be safe on the water. Good luck.
This is Jeff Crosby with the Central Fisheries District Fishing Report. Fishing across the district continues to be good. Lake temperatures are running in the mid-50s. Largemouth bass are moving shallow at many of our district lakes. Many of these bass can be caught on a variety of lures such as spinner baits, lipless crankbaits, jerk baits, and plastic bait combinations. Crappie are moving shallow at many of our lakes such as Harrington and Taylorsville Lake. Many of these crappie can be found along shoreline cover, fishing with live minnows or crappie jigs in about 4 to 10 feet of water. And finally, many of our Fins program lakes have been stocked with channel catfish. Trout are expected to be stocked in the upcoming weeks. So grab your pole and enjoy some great spring fishing.
In western Kentucky, down in Kentucky Barkley Lakes, it's time of the year that people start thinking about crappie fishing. Right now, you can catch them suspended out across the flats. They're moving up in the creek channels. When the water's clear and the sun's out, casting the banks always ideal for those black crappie. Minnows are the best bait of choice because we have had a lot of rain. The water's pretty muddy, and and so you're going to need something kind of flashy, and so that moving minnow seems to be the trick right now. Well, with bass, again, it's springtime. The fish are starting to move up. Throwing a spinnerbait, something kind of flashy in that muddy water would work best, or a dark-colored jig around some woody structure is always ideal. But right now, let's think crappie and bass in Kentucky and Barkley Lakes. It's only going to get better. Well, this is Paul Reister. I hope you find a good day to go fishing.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return. But you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear, flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund, the natural tax shelter.
Baglin back. We're into our second half hour. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. It's our St. Patrick's Day special. So how big is your world? Is it as big as your city, your county, your state? Other than what you see in the news in the evening, do you ever think about what you may or may not have in common with someone from another country? I suspect you don't. It's easy to say they have their deal, we have ours, we have nothing in common, until you sit down and strike up a conversation. In this hour, we're doing pretty much just that, talking to a fellow named Albert Nolan. He is the host of a program similar to Kentucky Afield Radio, except it's in Southern Ireland. It's called Wild About Limerick. I've never been to Ireland, but I think I need to get Albert to come here and bring his fishing pole.
I was very interested to read that fishing is very much encouraged in the national park system.
Fishing in national parks doesn't require a license. Now, that's how I understand it. I'm one of those kind of guys, well, if I'm going to fish, I'm going to have a license. Is that the way you are?
Yeah, and that's an unusual system. You know, I thought if any place that would be regulated, it would be your national parks, you know, because they're designated. And I was interested to see that you can hunt there, you can fish there, you know, because our national parks, definitely you cannot hunt and fish in them. You know, it's a complete ban on any of those activities. I do know over here that you just can't go to a stream and start fishing. You have to apply for your license, and you have a lot of, again, local angling clubs that will be, you know, they take an active interest in the conservation of their stream, and they might stock it and they'll do cleanups. And I think fishermen are always brilliant because they're the first to notice when something has gone wrong with the water, like the fish might be biting or the numbers are down. So I think they're like the early warning system. And if you do go to a stream without a license, you know, you will be approached, you know, and asked to produce one. And what you can do, if you're a visitor, you can apply in the local angling shops for like a day pass or a 3-day pass or a week pass, depending on how long you're staying. So you don't have to get a year just to come fishing to Ireland. You'll be able to get these 3-day passes or week pass, and that usually covers most people, you know, for their stint when they come here to fish.
Right. We have the same type of system here. You can get a 1, 3, 5, 7, whatever it may be. But you can get a short-term license. That'll cover you for your stay and hopefully entice you to come back again.
You know, I think that's a very open system as well, and a very fair system. And you have the closed system, of course, here, and in terms of hunting of certain species and in fishing. And there will be times when, yes, it's not allowed, especially during the breeding season for a lot of, you know, our wild creatures would coincide with a lot of young animals on farms, so they don't want people going around shooting. So you do have closed seasons here where those sort of recreational activities don't take place.
You mentioned a while ago when we're talking about farmland, are farmers permitted to shoot nuisance wildlife that may be on their property causing damage, or do they need to get a special dispensation to do that?
No, with certain species that they're classed as vermin, so that means they can be shot at any time, and once it's done responsibly. So a rabbit, have you rabbits in Kentucky?
We have many rabbits in Kentucky.
Yes, and as we well know, rabbits can, as you mentioned there, can breed like a rabbit. So if the numbers are not controlled, they could do untold damage to the farmer's land. So yes, you can shoot those. Other species like deer, which I mentioned, you do need to have a special license, and often you have to bring in someone like the wildlife ranger who will call in qualified marksmen just to make sure that the animal is shot clean, it's shot safely, and it's shot humanely. So farmers have a bit of leeway, but it is regulated, which I do feel is right as well.
Now, when you shoot rabbits and you shoot fallow deer, we've already established that the palate of Ireland doesn't like the taste of deer. But do you like rabbits?
Oh, yes, we do, yeah. And I remember when we 20 years ago growing up, and you go into the market yard in my town, and you'd have rabbits hanging up there for sale. So they were part of the staple diet, because back then money was scarce, and people would have had the tradition of going to the countryside to look for their food, and shooting a rabbit was a key way of doing it. But unfortunately, we had myxomatosis. Have you heard? I'm sure, Charlie, myxomatosis must be over in Kentucky as well.
Myxomatosis, I have not heard of it.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm glad you've not heard of it, because about 20 years ago here, it was a disease that was manufactured. It was introduced into the rabbit population, and in some places it killed off over 90% of the rabbits. And you could see rabbit myxomatosis is not a nice thing to do. And what happens here now is the rabbit population will start to build up again, and a new strain of myxomatosis will come in and it will crash. So once that was introduced, rabbit as a source of food went out of flavour.
I would imagine so. I've heard of tularemia as it involves rabbits. Wasn't that Australia?
Brought to Australia, and they actually got so bad they undermined the railway system by burrowing underneath it, and they ate all the grassland for the beef cattle. So myxomatosis again was introduced there, but usually about 10% survive, and they breed again and get a new strain. But I do think, yes, they have to be controlled, but I do think it was a rabbit really suffers horrendously with this disease. So I think, on the balance of it, shooting the poor creatures would have been a lot more humane.
Do you have the concept of an Easter rabbit in Ireland?
Yes, we do. The Easter Bunny, a very great tradition. And my kids I have twins that are 9. So every year they have Easter Bunny, and we would do the Easter egg hunts. So we would hide Easter eggs in the garden, and the kids would get their little baskets, and they would head around the garden to find the hidden Easter eggs. And in a lot of places like children's centres and playgrounds, they would have the Easter egg hunt. The way you make it fair is every child's name is written on the egg.
Nice.
So at least it means that one child doesn't find 15 eggs and someone else doesn't get it. So if you find an egg and it says Charlie on it, that's your egg. But if you find an egg and it says Albert, please don't eat it.
I know it's yours, or I'll at least keep it hidden and enjoy watching you sweat trying to find it. Maybe hide it a little more than the rabbit did initially.
Well, it's a great tradition as well. And do you do the Easter Bunny over in Kentucky?
We do. We have Easter rabbits. We love the Easter rabbit, and he's a regular visitor every Easter Sunday. We like chocolate, and we like candy. I don't know about the eggs as much, but the Easter rabbit here brings chocolate and candy. And a smile to every kid's face and every grown-up's face, too. There's not a soul here that doesn't like the Easter rabbit.
When I said eggs, I didn't mean like the ones that the chickens lay. I mean chocolate eggs.
Chocolate eggs.
I think if I gave my ones ordinary eggs, they'd pelt them at me to be disgusted. So we do like the chocolate version over here. And they'd often have the egg and spoon race, and where you boil up an ordinary egg and part of the tradition, and the kids have to carry it on a spoon, and often they're too tied together. So you'd have that kind of traditional game as well about the Easter rabbit. And, and that's an interesting thing, that Easter rabbit, Easter bunny now, as we call it, is very popular over here. So I think that's another reason why not only did you have myxomatosis, but people can't eat their childhood heroes. Like the Easter bunny, like you grew up with the Easter bunny, you're certainly not going to eat him for your dinner.
You can't
I think it's interesting what you're brought up with as a culture and a generation and country affects what you eat.
You just don't know how astute that makes you sound, Albert, that you cannot eat your childhood hero. That's profound. Holidays in the United States and in Kentucky, we involve wildlife in a lot of them. Like in Halloween, we'll have bats and black cats and spiders, snakes and owls. At Easter, we have rabbits. At Christmas, we have deer, holly, ivy, snow. We include wildlife and nature in pretty much all of our holidays. Is it the same there?
Yeah, very much so. You mentioned Christmas, and not so much deer. And strangely enough, that even though you have the reindeer that pull Santa's sleigh, deer have never medded much into the kind of the Christmas traditions here. Well, one bird we do have is the robin. The robin over here, I think you have the American robin, and I'm sure you have robins in Kentucky as well.
We do, yes.
Here would be on the Christmas tree. You'd have the little artificial robin. He'd appear on the Christmas cards. Any TV show on at that time of the year, about Christmas kids show, would have the robin in it. So the robin is a piece of wildlife that's very closely associated with the Christmas period.
I say there's a lot of tales that we tell about wildlife that helps our culture along, doesn't it?
It does, and I think the wildlife that we're brought up with, we don't lose touch with it, because I think the environment, it gives us so much in terms of the practicality of, meat in our table or meat in our freezer. And when someone has an interest and awareness of the nature around them, they will work to protect it.
They will. People tend to protect what they appreciate. That's why one of our goals here in Kentucky is to make wildlife real to people and make them sensitive to its needs. I like wildlife, and it has every reason to like me back. We will take a break, and then we're back with our final few. Stay with us. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Bagland back with our closing few minutes on Kentucky Afield Radio. My guest this week is Albert Nolan from the lovely town of Limerick, Ireland. Albert, we've talked about everything, but tell me more about your show.
So my radio show goes out every 2 weeks. It goes out the Saturday afternoon, and it's a community radio station in Limerick City. And I've been doing it now a couple of years. And I think it's a wonderful way of communicating your message out, but also having guests in. Like I had a guest in last week now talking all about bees, which are in trouble this side of the pond, as you call it. I don't know about bees in Kentucky, if you have a good population and how they're doing.
Yeah, we do have bees, but I was told here too that bee populations have, this is not just Kentucky, but in places across the nation, that bee populations have been reduced, and we're trying to figure out why.
Yeah, and we have the same over here,
Tell me about Limerick City. In Limerick City, I don't know if limericks mean the same to you as they do to me. It's a type of poem. Do you tell limericks in Limerick?
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the word, as you say, the limerick came from actually Limerick, which is a very old type of poem. Limerick City is about 60,000 people. So Limerick, yeah, and it's quite an old city as well.
Are limericks just a novelty? I'm looking at one here. Let me give an example. A painter who lived in Great Britain interrupted two girls with their knitting. He said with a sigh, that park bench, well, I just painted it. Right there where you're sitting.
The limericks are for the tourists when they come over.
The opening line of a limerick that I have heard most is, there once was a man from Nantucket. Does that ring a bell with you at all?
No, would you believe it? I have heard of it, but I'm not sure where Nantucket is, or did I ever look it up? But do you know where it is? Is it on your side of the woods? Yeah,
there must be a Nantucket, like in our northeastern United States, Rhode Island, perhaps. That might be Pawtucket I'm thinking about.
Yeah, it sounds more American than Irish, I would think. But just curious as well, two birds that we sent your way over the years would be starlings and the house sparrow. And I know the starlings were introduced into, I think it was New York about 100 years ago. Now they've spread everywhere. Have you a good relationship with starlings? Are they in Kentucky first?
We are aware of starlings, and if I'm talking about the same bird that you are, that is what we would identify as an exotic invasive species, that it's not from here.
And would you believe what I read about it? It was brought over by Shakespeare, not by Shakespeare himself, but by Shakespeare, people who went to Shakespeare, and they wanted to have every bird that Shakespeare mentioned in his books. So the starling was one, and they brought him over to America, I think about 100 years ago, and from those 100 birds, you now have 200 million odds.
Right. And they love to eat bush honeysuckle. Now, that's sort of another exotic invasive plant that just grows and proliferates, and you can't walk through it. Deer can't walk through it. It makes it hard to get anywhere in a forest because of this plant, the bush honeysuckle. You can't get rid of it because you can't get rid of the starlings. So I'm not going to blame you personally, Albert, but I wish you could have kept that bird.
Well, we gave you George Clooney, so does George Clooney make up for all those starlings?
We'll say that it does. For the sake of our, we'll take George and you keep the starling. But are there any plants that you have or any animals that are exotic invasives there that came from here?
I think the grey squirrel, if I'm correct, is North American in its origin, and that was brought over here to Ireland possibly, I think, a couple of 100 years ago. I can't remember the exact date. And they were released here into the countryside, and we have a native red squirrel here in Ireland. The grey squirrel is bigger, it's tougher, and it carried squirrel pox virus. So it has decimated our red squirrels over here because it outcompetes with them, it out-eats them, it outbreeds them. So the red squirrel unfortunately disappeared from a lot of areas as soon as this grey squirrel came in. So he was North American.
Didn't mean for that to happen.
But when settlers went abroad, not only did they bring their traditions like St. Patrick and Easter Bunny and Halloween and all of that, but we brought our wildlife because we wanted to be reminded of home.
We love our wildlife, and we want you to come see it. And I know you want us, I trust, to come to Ireland and see what you have. From the tourism standpoint, what would you say? What do you do? What do you say to invite people to come to your country?
Well, I think, first of all, it's the tradition between the countries. You know, we have the history of the Irish people heading over there, and God knows how many Americans can trace their lineage back here to Ireland. So you have that great connection. We have the history as well, you know, that if you're into history in castles and churches. So I think for anyone coming, be it old, be it young, be it someone with young children, there is definitely something here in Ireland and in Limerick for you to enjoy, and I think that anyone coming over would have a fabulous experience.
Well, Albert, I appreciate you looking us up on the web and finding us. I'm sure. Have you found other shows that you've been in contact with?
I have not. Yours was the only one that came up. So as I said, that your one glared out, and I said, yeah, I'm going to tune into this, and I like what I saw. So I said I sent in an email to say hello, and delighted to be invited on. And it's been a real pleasure learning about Kentucky, which, to be honest, I didn't know much about initially. So I think it's always the fabulous thing that learning something new about the wildlife and, you know, how you approach your wildlife over there as well.
Albert, thanks a million for being on the show.
And that's all. Thank you, Charlie.
It's been fun. Our St. Patrick's Day edition of Kentucky Afield Radio. If you would like to hear Albert's show, you can do so on Limerick City Radio. It's available online. LCCR for Limerick City Community Radio .ie. Check it out. We are out of time. This is Charlie Baglin inviting you to join us in a week, and we'll go inside outdoors again, right here on Kentucky Afield Radio.